If you haven't used AI this week, you don't really know AI. Things are changing so fast, and the teams at Upskill together are the ones unlocking real transformation. That's a quote from Pam Boiros and a sneak peek at today's episode. Welcome to Revenue Boost, a marketing podcast, the show where growth-minded business leaders learn how to turn marketing into a measurable revenue engine. I'm your host, Kerry Curran, revenue growth obsessed, go-to-market expert, and industry analyst. Each week, I sit down with the brightest minds in marketing, sales, and customer experience to unpack the real-world strategies that drive sustainable growth. If you like what you hear, please be sure to follow, rate, and review the podcast on your favorite platform. It helps us reach more leaders like you. Today's episode is packed with practical advice of how to bring AI into your marketing organization without the overwhelm. Pam Boiros shares her approach to team-based AI training, the real blockers CMO face, and how to shift from chaos to confidence. Whether you're starting to explore tools or are ready to scale adoption, this conversation is your strategic edge. Be sure to stay tuned until the end of today's episode, where Pam shares a powerful tip for turning AI skeptics into super users, especially your strongest writers. Let's go. Welcome, Pam. Please introduce yourself and share your background and expertise.
Hi, Kerry. So happy to join you today. My name is Pam Boiros, and I'm a Boston-based fractional CMO consultant and advisor. My background is in B2B tech, particularly HR technology. I have my own organization called Bridge Marketing Advisors. I've gone in and out of being an in-house CMO and being a fractional CMO. My early career started in publishing, which we might get into a little bit later. Spent a bunch of time at Skillsoft, Equilibrium, and a bunch of other companies in that space. And I've really just been trying to ride the wave of all these tech innovations that we've had since 2000, between mobile and social, and certainly now AI.
Yeah, definitely. It's been, that's what's exciting about being a marketer is you really get to see the rapid evolution of how brands are communicating with consumers and audiences and needing to keep up with all of that. So I know you speak with a lot of CMOs and other business leaders in your day-to-day. Like, what are the biggest questions or themes, challenges that you're hearing them talk about?
Yeah, I feel like a lot, and I am highly sympathetic and empathetic to the CMO role, having sat in it. Yeah. So when I talk to my CMO friends, and involved in many, many circles of different CMOs around the country and around the world, really, folks feel a little bit like deer in headlights when it comes to AI and bringing AI into their organizations. So they're kind of like squeezed in the middle of this sandwich, right? So the CEO and the board and investors are kind of reading the AI headlines and saying, well, can't you cut your budget in half? Can't you cut your team in half and do twice as much, right? So they're kind of getting those messages. And then bubbling up from their team, they're probably getting a whole bunch of different messages, right? Everything from the AI enthusiasts on their team who are trying different tools and practicing these tools and maybe trying to even bring them into the workflows. And everybody, and then sometimes the rest of the team might have their head in the sand and really not be wanting to engage with AI tools for a variety of reasons that I'm sure we'll talk about. So I definitely am very sympathetic to folks being kind of squeezed in the middle. Yeah. And it's really hard to keep up with all of the news and all of the tools in a demanding job like a CMO where there's so many things coming at people. And I really think you need to tinker with these tools and play with them. And time is not always on our side as CMOs. I literally had a friend of mine who's a CMO say to me recently, well, at 4:45 last Friday, when I felt like all my fires were put out, I decided I was going to learn something about AI. And I was like, well, how did that work out for you? I mean, you really have to dedicate a little bit of time and really solid mind share to get familiar with these tools.
Yeah, I definitely agree, and I've experienced that firsthand. Where it's how do you use it? How do you use it in a way that's helping you be more get smarter and more effective, and not just what people think you're doing. Of hey, ChatGPT, just write me an article, and now I'm going to publish it.
That's right.
But so it's definitely there's a huge like you said, there's so much in between that. So but you with your background and experience, like you saw this coming. So share your story of kind of like what when you first saw ChatGPT and AI on the horizon, like how did you know to lean in?
Yeah, exactly. So many of us have a ChatGPT moment. I love to hear people's different ChatGPT moments. So mine was I was at an event, a work event. It was the end of the year of 2022. I think it was like a holiday party. And one of my colleagues, whose husband worked for one of the major technology providers, said, "Hey, have you heard of this ChatGPT thing?" And I hadn't. And I'm not even sure I knew what generative AI was at that point. So she briefly
Mhm.
explained it. And I said, "Oh, that sounds cool." So I'm riding the T home that night after the party, and I'm like, well, let me just try this. And my mind was blown. Like I have one of those flashbulb memories of like that exact moment when I saw it generate text for me based on sort of a very simple prompt about vacation plans upcoming. And I
Yeah.
immediately was kind of brought back to 1995, the first time I saw a World Wide Web page and just kind of all the tech revolutions that have happened in the meantime. So one thing that's great about it being 30 years later is that I'm a lot smarter and I'm able to kind of like tie things together a little bit better. So
Mhm.
when I talk about 1995, in addition to the, seeing a first World Wide Web page, I'll share a funny story with you, Kerry. At the time, I was working for a print book publisher, like old fashioned printed books, really interesting topics the company
Mhm.
had. One of the challenges was getting those books in the hands of the right readers. So this was all before many of the innovations we've had. So sitting at my desk one day in 1995, we get a letter in the mail, like a printed letter from this company, and that said, we're Amazon.com. We're going to be the world's biggest bookstore. So those of you who we now order everything from Amazon, right? But at the time, Amazon really
Mhm.
started as a bookstore. It was going to disintermediate the problem of reaching the readers of particular books because there are so many books in print. Even if you go into a Barnes and Noble, it's
Yeah.
200,000 titles in there. That's only a teeny tiny fraction of all the books that are available. Anyway, so my reaction at the time, because this was a very different time, I was like, "Oh, that's kind of a dumb idea. That's not really going to work."
This Jeff
And
Bezos guy, he doesn't know what he's
yeah,
talking
what does he
about.
know, right? So anyway, as then very quickly, Amazon became one of our most important customers, right? And I
Yeah.
realized, I said, okay, I should have gotten on a plane on that day. I should have dropped that letter on the floor, gotten on a plane, gone to Seattle, and been part of this innovation and this revolution. So that really stuck with me. So I have been really trying hard ever since to never miss a tech revolution, which is why I was so
Mhm.
early to mobile, which is why I was so early to social, which is why I was so early to things. But honestly, Kerry, like the Gen AI is bigger than anything I've ever seen before.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's just a really interesting time. So there's parallels, and I think other people have said it. Like for example, Bill Gates has said generative AI is the most interesting tech revolution he's seen in his lifetime.
Yeah.
So if
Yeah.
that's the case, I think we all need to get on board.
Yeah, and I love that your experience and the fact that you've been there and you recognized it, because I think there's so much value in that expertise and knowledge. And so you saw it, you're on your way home on the T, you're like, I need to do this. Like how did you dive in?
Yeah, so I felt a little bit overwhelmed in like deer in headlights. Just which was what, again, why I'm very sympathetic to folks who are in the CMO world today. So I'd really just
Mhm.
started to read everything I could. I know you've had previous guests who have mentioned the Marketing AI Institute as a resource, great resource.
Mhm.
They have great newsletters and podcasts. Started to read and consume and listen to absolutely everything that they had.
Yeah.
Um, I was really trying to bring AI first mindset into my team at the time because I
Mhm.
was a CMO. We were an AI forward company, so that was kind of a little bit easier maybe than in some other environments. And I really was committed to this upskilling for B2B teams.
Yeah.
So I took a course at MIT. I have started to go to a wide variety of events in the Boston area. We are blessed here in the Boston area to have such a rich AI ecosystem. So there's an
Mhm.
event you could go to morning, noon, and a night every day if you wanted to. So just got to know people in the AI ecosystem, tried all the tools, got to be very familiar with all the tools out there, and really just have absorbed a whole bunch of knowledge. But it doesn't happen automatically. You have to at least take that first step. And then the second step's a lot easier after the first. And you start to get really familiar, start to get excited about these tools. And you can see the not only efficiency and effectiveness, but actually the added creativity that you can get by using these tools.
Definitely. And I think that's, that's the opportunity. And there's so many ways to do it. So you mentioned, that when you're speaking with the CMOs and organizations that are trying to just navigate this, what are some of the additional challenges that you're seeing?
Yeah, so there's what I see is a lot of random acts of AI, right? So we're familiar with random acts of marketing, right? So random acts of AI. And I think it's okay to start, right? You've got a pilot, you've got to start somewhere, but pretty soon you've got to bring it into a strategy. And what I definitely see is that there's this huge disparity, and unfortunately it's getting bigger, not smaller, between, the AI enthusiast and this sort of AI averse. And what we need to do, and this is again the kind of the basis of my entire upskilling program, is we need to close that gap and get everybody to a base level of AI literacy. It's not going to be an option, right? So folks need to get over the hump and start to get familiar with these tools a little bit at a time. And what I've seen be very effective is when a team starts to think AI first, that's when the magic really, really starts to happen for a marketing team or, a revenue team across sales as well.
Definitely. So talk more about, give us some examples of how are you and your, your consulting, how are you helping teams? What are some of the things that you're doing?
Yep. So a couple things. So as a fractional CMO, consultant and advisor, I am using these tools every day with my clients, for my clients. So I try to be really AI first in all the activities that I do. But in addition, I built, based on my learning and my experience, I built a program that I call the Marketing AI Jumpstart, which is I call it old-fashioned instructor-led training. And it's really built for B2B marketing teams. Now, there's no lack of AI training out there. I mean, you go on LinkedIn, you go anywhere, there's tons of AI courses that you could take. But what I've seen is that sometimes you are alone in a course of 200 people. I know that sounds funny to be alone in a course of 200 people, but you might be the only person from your company, and maybe there's not that much interaction in an online course. And if you're highly self-directed and highly interested, you can learn a ton, but most people may not be that self-directed. So what I found is when you kind of assemble a team and have a similar vocabulary and folks are learning skills together, that's really where the power comes, because people learn from each other, particularly in a tool like this. So if I'm an events manager, for example, and my product marketing colleague is doing certain things, I can learn from them. All right. I can learn, oh, wow, they're using it to create communication tools about our new product release. Oh, they're using it to maybe get a start on the newsletter that we write. I can relate that to my work because we're in a team. And it's, again, a supportive environment. So that's really kind of the secret sauce to what I've done. There's components. The first thing we do actually is assess for mindset, okay? Because AI is a skill set, but there's a huge mindset component here. And when we think about all the tech we've brought into marketing over the years, right? Marketing automation systems, intent data, like we've brought in a lot of tech. Nobody's had the same emotional reaction as they have with Gen AI. And it makes sense, right? Because there's a bunch of things at play here, right? The efficiency makes people wonder, is this thing going to replace me? Is this thing better than me, right? If my identity as a writer or marketer, and actually there's this machine that does it better, faster, cheaper, that's very concerning. So we try to unpack people's mindset and get them past any of that hesitancy, because the best transformations actually I've seen from the AI skeptic to the enthusiast are actually writers, because prompt engineering takes great advantage of that ability to use the nuance of language. So writers who know how to tease details out of language become very, very good prompters. And then they start to see their writing get even better. So that's really kind of exciting to watch, both in the context of my formal training, but then just in the context of talking to folks who are in B2B marketing.
Hey everyone, it's me, Kerry Curran. If you're a B2B company that sells to marketers, whether you're an agency, MarTech, or AdTech, and your revenue is either flattening, declining, or just not growing fast enough, I can help. I've spent my entire career selling, marketing, and servicing marketers, so I know firsthand the challenges they face, the buying decisions they make, and what actually moves the needle. The truth is, most marketing strategies aren't built for revenue growth, but mine are. As your fractional Chief Growth Officer, I'll bring revenue-focused marketing strategies designed specifically for selling to marketers, deep expertise in agency, MarTech, and ad tech buying behaviors, modern go-to-market strategies that include everything from brand awareness to driving loyalty and retention, and a track record of doubling and even tripling revenue for B2B companies just like yours. So if you're tired of your stagnant results and you're ready to build a marketing engine that actually drives revenue, let's talk. Visit revenuebasedmarketing.com or connect with me on LinkedIn to schedule a consultation. Together, let's build a smarter, more profitable path forward. RBMA, Revenue-Based Marketing Advisors, we're revenue-based marketing that works. Yeah, and I love that you start with the mindset, because we know that's a challenge. And with that, there are kind of common blockers to feeling comfortable. And you talked about kind of how writers need to test into it to feel comfortable. But what are some of the other common blockers you've seen, and how do you kind of break that down?
Yeah, that's a very insightful question, Kerry, because it is one thing that I think pops up a lot. And some of these are really counterintuitive. Mm-hmm. So one of the things that I've heard, and I heard this on my own team, which was interesting, using AI is cheating, right? And this is interesting. I only ever hear this from women. I've never heard guys say that. So whether, whatever that says. So I think, good girl syndrome, right? Like, am I cheating at my job by using this tool? So the analogy that I use with folks is, well, you use an Excel spreadsheet, right? Well, of course I do. Well, why aren't you using like a paper, spreadsheet? Why are you using Excel? Well, it's a tool, right? So you start to have these conversations. There's a lot of parallels, right? When people know about, the kind of, it's just a tool, right? It's another tool in your toolbox. Another thing that pops up a lot, sometimes people have had a bad first experience with like an early ChatGPT or some other tool. Usually I find that that's user error rather than the technology's error. They gave it a very basic prompt and didn't get something back that was great. So that can be like, see, this doesn't work. And then again, people are conditioned to be like, to reinforce what they already believe, right? So I always ask people, if you haven't used AI this week, you don't really know AI, because things are changing so much.
Yeah.
Again, prompting is a skill set, right? We're not, I think people bring sort of like a Google search mindset to using these tools. But actually, if you think about like a search engine is doing a search execution, this is really an answer engine. So the way to prompt and the use of language and how specific you can be with your prompts and how to refine it. Again, we get into all of that in my training program. That is really a skill set everybody's going to have. There was some talk, probably like 4 or 5 years ago, that prompt engineer was going to be a job of the future. That's not going to be a job title. Everybody is going to need to be a prompt engineer in their day-to-day.
Yeah. No, I think that's so smart. And so with prompting, like, what are some of the tips or strategies that you're using to help people just get more comfortable? And like you were saying, with writers can tease out the language, but what about for, people who don't have that background?
Yeah, no, 100%. Well, I think being very specific in writing your prompt, sometimes they say, treat AI like a smart intern. But I think you've got to treat it like a 5-year-old smart intern. And I'll tell you what I mean by that. If you were to speak to a really smart college student who's an intern, you'd have a lot of shorthand language. But with, again, ChatGPT or any of the tools out there, you need to be very specific with your instructions, right? And repeat yourself, right? So you say, please help me with some ideation for this project that I'm working on. Give it its role, give it some context, give it instructions, right? So there's a grace network, a grace format, right, of giving it its role and, limitations and context, right? So following that is really good. The other thing is, once you get your first raw output, you can copy and paste that to Word and start working with it, or you can refine it. So you can say to it, this is great, but can you make it more simple? Can you use less jargon? Can you write this at a 6th grade level? So there's a lot you can do to refine and refine and refine before you then take it to, again, a document. And absolutely everything should go to a document. Nobody should ever be copying the output and publishing it. My goodness, So that's another tip. The other thing, there's some really interesting things out there too, like not to give it negative instructions. So like, Kerry, if I said to you, don't think about a pink elephant, whatever you do, do not think about a pink elephant. What's in your mind? A pink elephant, right?
Yep.
So LLMs kind of operate the same way. So if you say, do not do this, you've actually planted that seed in the LLM's mind. So there's ways always to reframe a negative instruction so that it's a positive. So just think about that. Those are just kind of a few tips. There's a lot, and there's a lot of really good prompting that's going on. And like, actually, a lot of these tools actually have prompt assistance to help you improve your prompt. And again, like any skill, you're going to refine it. You're going to get better at it over time. And it's something that improves with practice.
Yeah, no, that's really helpful, because I've seen that as well. It's like the more experience I've had, and to your point of assigning you're an audience or a persona, you are a CMO and you are solving for this, like, what are your challenges? Or, and I agree. I think that's so valuable. And I think just that advice is really helpful. So as you're working with teams, I know a lot of companies, they want a private custom GPT, so they're not giving all of their the ingredients to their secret sauce out into the AI land. So talk about kind of how you're building those internal infrastructure, AI infrastructure, but also fostering that team collaboration.
Yeah, 100%. I think a big part of AI literacy is also what not to do, right? So I can tell you, Kerry, as we speak, somewhere, some marketing intern is uploading a super secret company product roadmap to ChatGPT public and saying, help me write this into 5 bullet points. That is now out in the world, right? Yeah. So being aware of that, that is what folks need to know. So what I've found is, you just hit on the kind of things that marketers need, right? There's kind of like 3 things that marketers need to know when they are picking a generative AI tool. One is that their data is going to be protected, right? When you think about all the things, we have customer data, we have product data, we have revenue data, we have pipeline data, like we have so much stuff, we have intent data. We don't want to just be feeding that out into the open LLM and then that's out. And we have no idea what's going to happen with that. In fact, the LLM providers don't even know what happens with that, but we know they're hungry for training data, so they're going to gobble it up, right? So protection of your data. You want to make sure it's not going to completely hallucinate on you, right? So that's one of the big concerns that marketers have is hallucinations, which is where LLMs make stuff up. They're all getting better, but that's a big concern. And then finally, your brand, style, voice, and tone is really, really important for us as marketers. And, sometimes what you get out of a ChatGPT, kind of plain vanilla, right? There's a lot of trigger words or words that you're like, okay, that's a Gen AI answer. So that was really what I was seeking as a marketer, and also as I was building my training program. Like, what tech am I going to build my training around? Because I'm not a technologist. I am not going to build one of these things. So it's actually a company here in the Boston area called CustomGPT.ai, which is a RAG model, retrieval augmented generation, which is another way of saying that all of your information goes into their environment, but doesn't go into the underlying LLM. I think of it like a Lego block that snaps on top of a foundation model, and your information is in that Lego block. And if you ever want to delete anything, you can. If you want to add things, but it's highly, highly secure and protected from all of the other content, even that CustomGPT.ai has. So you can train it then with its voice and style and tone. You can create different projects or agents in their parlance to do different things. Because if you're trying to do a competitive assessment, that's very different from doing content creation, very different from creating a new product launch. So you can actually define different projects to do different things for you within this environment. And you can have different team members in it. So, and I love the voice and tone because you can feed it your style guide. You can say, we don't call our customers, we call them clients. We don't call our employees, we call them associates. Like, you can feed all of those vocabulary requirements and limitations, and you know that the text is then going to come out better. So if we think about the output of a plain vanilla chat GPT versus what you might get from custom GPT.ai, instead of getting like 40% usable on the first prompt, you're going to get like 80% usable. Again, you still want to take it to a document. You still want to check it. You still want to read every word, do a lot of tweaking, but it just gets you further along and with better, with better information. So that's the tool that I use.
Great. No, this is super helpful. And, I love the examples you're giving, and especially how the teams can use it to collaborate. And, with marketing, we always need to collaborate with our tech stack and the rev ops. So just talk about a bit just how the recommendations or the guidance you're sharing for that integration as well.
Yeah, 100%. Well, if we think about it, right, today's AI is the dumbest AI we're ever going to have, right? This stuff is just getting better and better and better on a weekly basis. Even if it froze today, it would be so incredibly powerful and meet the needs of most marketers. So just imagine what the future is going to hold. Yeah. So that can be very overwhelming for folks, right? So if we think about, again, all the tech we've brought in, I have definitely heard people say, well, we know in 3 or 6 months it's going to get better, so let's pause and not do anything right now. I really don't advise that, right? I think you have to get started. My advice is to take a look at your core tech stack, right? And build around it. So a lot of the core platforms, again, whether you're HubSpot, whether you're Marketo, whether you're Salesforce, like a lot of them are making a lot of big announcements around their AI capabilities. We always have to separate the reality from the AI fairy dust, but I do think there's some really good innovation that's going on there. So just see what your core platform can do. What I always say to people, you should be asking hard questions of your vendors. And if the solution engineer doesn't have to come on your calls every so often because the account manager can't answer your question, I'm not sure you're doing your job. So push your vendors hard, go beyond the hype, go beyond their product roadmap, and really ask, how's this going to benefit me, right? Not just whizzy feature, but how's this going to benefit me? A lot of these systems have also built really good partner ecosystems. So sort of the next ring out in the concentric circle, right? So take a look if you have a need and it's not satisfied by that core platform, take a look at their partner ecosystem. And then, again, we're getting a whole bunch of emails all the time from all of these upstart products and solutions. Yep. So, be cautious, experiment again. If you are going to try some of these tools, some of them have very affordable monthly prices and rates. I actually advise people to go month to month. I know listen, I've worked in B2B SaaS. I know everybody wants to get you on an annual subscription, but I think with a lot of these tools, the month to month, even though it's more per month, actually is a smart investment until you see if you're going to get the return before you make that annual investment, because you might find yourself locked in 6 months from now. And so the ability to act now rather than wait 6 months, but to also make smart decisions with your budget and your tools. Yeah, hopefully that helps, Kerry. Is that what you were kind of hoping for?
Yes, definitely. Because I think that's part of it, right? Getting marketing comfortable with using AI for, like you said, the efficiency or just getting more creative and effective is only one part of it. So the connecting to your tech stack is what's going to help move the needle even further. And like you said, change that company culture of how you can really embrace AI to help drive those business results. So everyone, for the people who are listening today and they're like, Pam is brilliant, like what do they need to do to have in place to get started? Like, what are some of the either foundations or first steps for companies that realize now I can't wait any longer to really embrace AI?
Yeah, exactly. Well, first of all, I'm not brilliant. It's just that I have, I might be a few steps ahead. I feel like sometimes I'm a 6th grader teaching 5th graders. You know what I mean? That's kind of where we all are at. And I think recognizing that. So everybody feels a little bit behind, and that is the case. But actually the kinds of companies that are, AI first and, top to bottom and across the stack and everything's super awesome, are very few and far between. So don't let that stop you. So, the longest journey starts with the first step, and which is just to take that step, get over the fact that you feel like you're behind, start to read, start to listen, whatever your learning modality is. Again, the podcasts and books and articles, and there's a lot of experts on LinkedIn and on other social media platforms where you can get just little nuggets of advice. I have like a whole folder where I save, if somebody, as I'm scrolling and I see something interesting, I save it for later when I have actually some time to go in and consume it. So, save a folder, that kind of thing. I think, we talked a little bit about skill set and mindset. Get in touch with your own mindset too, which can be very hard to do. And just be honest with yourself. Like, is this really that you don't have enough time and you're too busy? Or is there something else going on here? Right. So just really try to do that. I think, this is probably going on in your organization across all teams, right? So talk to some peers, get some, executive buy-in, talk to the people on your team who are those enthusiasts or who have the potential to be. Find out if maybe a lot of times people are using these tools kind of surreptitiously because companies either have a thou shalt not policy or they are silent on the policy. So my guess is you might have some people who are using it. And if you're not having that conversation, I encourage you to open that conversation up. And then again, think about your business priorities, think about integration into your existing tech stack, think about automating processes. Again, focus on your real use cases, build a use case catalog, start to refine it, get your team working on it together. And actually, I think it's going to breathe new life into the role of marketing. I think, marketing has become, when I started marketing, you got a budget, and when you spent the budget, you were kind of done because everything cost money. And then 6 months later, somebody would say, well, how did that do? And you'd give them like a swag at what it did. Right. So that's what it used to be. And now, there's so much that we can do that's free and cheap. There's another LinkedIn post that you can do. There's another content piece you can do. You can tweak your ad campaign and turn the dials. It's become kind of a burnout world. And I think if we can automate, like if you think about in physical work, right? We've been automating dirty, dull, and dangerous work for decades, right? There are now robots that go in and diffuse bombs, and there are, machines that put the lug nuts on the cars, right? Yeah. So we don't have a lot of dirty and we don't have a lot of dangerous, but we have a heck of a lot of dull in marketing. And if we can automate some of the dull, I think we're actually going to unleash the creativity, which is what people, get into marketing for in the first place.
Yeah. And to reiterate what you said earlier, it's not cheating. You're using a tool.
That's right. Yeah. 100%. 100%.
I love that. Well, thank you, Pam. So how can people get in touch with you and learn more about how you could help them?
Yeah, exactly. So probably best place to find me is on LinkedIn. I try to post regularly. I try to share a lot of resources in the area. So I am the only Pam Boiros on LinkedIn. So you can easily find me there. Or you can go to my company's website, which is bridgemarketingadvisors.com, and you can reach out to me there. I'd love to hear from people who are experimenting, what you're doing. I always learn from those conversations, so I would encourage you to reach out. If you want to learn more about customgpt.ai, which is this tool that I'm using, I've done demos. I have some recorded demos. Be happy to share that with you as well. So I look forward to hearing from your listeners, Kerry.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Pam. Really grateful for you sharing all of your expertise today. And thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Revenue Boost, a marketing podcast. If this conversation helped shift your perspective or sparked new ideas, do us a favor and share it with a colleague who's navigating the same challenges. And don't forget to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen, so you never miss an episode. If you're ready to align your marketing with revenue impact, visit revenuebasedmarketing.com to learn more about how we help B2B teams grow smarter and faster. Until next time, keep driving growth one smart strategy at a time.